My parents always favored my sister, so when I bought my first home, they declared, "You'll let her live there for free, right?" When I said no, my sister shrieked, "You're so selfish. You don't deserve that house anyway." Minutes later, I handed them an eviction notice, for the apartment I secretly owned in their name. Their faces turned ashen. I always knew my parents favored my sister. I grew up watching them hand her everything while I had to work for even the smallest things. At first, I thought maybe I was just being dramatic. Maybe it was normal. Maybe I was imagining the way my parents bent over backward for her while I got the scraps. But no. It was real. And over the years, it only got worse. My sister, Rebecca, was the perfect daughter in their eyes. She could fail a test, crash a car, lose a job, and somehow, it was never her fault. There was always an excuse, always a safety net. Meanwhile, I was left to figure things out on my own. I learned early that if I wanted something, I had to work for it. No one was coming to save me. No one was going to hand me a new car when I totaled mine. No one was going to cover my rent if I fell short. So, I worked hard. I picked up shifts while I was in high school. I worked 2 jobs in college. I skipped vacations, nights out, and anything that wasn't absolutely necessary to save money. And after years of grinding, I finally did it. I bought my first house. It was nothing fancy, just a small, 2-bedroom home in Chicago, but it was mine. My name was on the deed. My money paid for it. I was proud of myself. I was excited. And like an idiot, I thought, maybe this time, they'll be proud of me too. I invited my parents over to see the house. They walked in, looked around, nodded like they were mildly impressed, and then my mom hit me with, "So, you'll let Rebecca live here for free, right?" Just like that. No, "Wow, we're so proud of you," or "This is amazing." Just an expectation. Like it was obvious that my sister should get to live in my house without paying a dime. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "No," I said. Rebecca's face twisted, like I had just slapped her. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no. She's not living here for free." My mom frowned. "Well, she can't afford rent right now. You know that." Rebecca had never been able to afford anything on her own. She had a history of quitting jobs, maxing out credit cards, and conveniently forgetting to pay people back. "That's not my problem," I said. Rebecca's voice went up an octave. "You're so selfish. You don't even deserve this house anyway." And there it was. That was the moment everything snapped into place for me. They never expected me to have something they couldn't control. My whole life, I had been the one struggling, working, scraping by while Rebecca was given everything. And now that I had something of my own, they expected me to hand it over. I took a deep breath, reached into my pocket, and pulled out an envelope. I looked at my parents and said, "Speaking of places to live," I handed the envelope to my dad. He opened it. "Read the first line." His face went pale. My mom snatched it from him, scanned the page, and gasped. Rebecca just stood there, confused. "What is it?" My dad looked up at me, his hands shaking. "This is an eviction notice. For your apartment," I said. "The one you live in." Silence. Long, heavy silence. My mom looked like she might pass out. "You don't own our apartment." I shrugged. "Actually, I do. I bought it 2 years ago. In your name, of course. You know, for tax purposes." Rebecca blinked. "Wait. You own their apartment?" "Yep." My dad's mouth opened and closed like he was trying to form words but couldn't. My mom finally found her voice. "You wouldn't." I smiled. "I would. And I just did." The second the words left my mouth, the room exploded. My mom was the loudest, her voice high-pitched and shaking. "You ungrateful little. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to throw your own family out on the street?" My dad wasn't much better. "This is cruel. This isn't how you treat the people who raised you." But it was Rebecca who went nuclear. She shrieked, lunging forward like she was about to rip the eviction notice out of my mom's hands. "You can't do this. You can't." I stood firm, watching her with a calmness that seemed to make her even angrier. "Yes, I can," I said simply. Her face twisted in rage. "This is illegal. You can't just evict someone without warning." I arched an eyebrow. "Actually, I can. 30-day notice. I did my research. I pointed to the paper she had just crumpled in her fists. Read the fine print. Rebecca's hands shook as she smoothed out the document. She skimmed it, her lips moving as she read, until her face twisted into pure horror. She realized I wasn't bluffing. Mom and Dad must have seen it, too, because their anger turned into something else, panic. This isn't fair, Mom tried again, her voice shaking. We don't have anywhere else to go. I shrugged. Maybe Rebecca can take care of you for once. Rebecca's head snapped up. Excuse me. I crossed my arms. You've been babied your whole life. Maybe it's time you learn how to actually handle responsibilities instead of expecting someone else to clean up your mess. Her face burned red. You're being a spiteful little brat. All because you're jealous of me. Jealous? I repeated. You live in an apartment I pay for. You have no savings. No job. No plan. If anyone should be jealous, it's you. Rebecca lost it. She grabbed the nearest thing, a glass from the coffee table, and threw it at me. I ducked. The glass hit the wall and shattered. The room fell silent. Even Rebecca looked shocked by what she had just done. My mom gasped, clutching her chest. My dad just stared, eyes wide. That was when I knew. This wasn't just about entitlement. This wasn't just about their obsession with Rebecca being the golden child. They were actually scared. Not of being homeless. Not of losing their cushy, comfortable situation. They were scared of me. Because for the first time in their lives, I wasn't just the kid they could steamroll over. I wasn't begging for their approval. I wasn't giving in. I had the power now. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension sit in the air. Then, calmly, I bent down, picked up the largest piece of broken glass, and placed it on the table. I looked up at Rebecca. You have 29 days left. She just stared at me, her chest rising and falling with heavy, panicked breaths. Then, suddenly, my dad shot up from the couch. This isn't over, he muttered, shaking his head. Mom grabbed his arm. We'll talk to a lawyer. I grinned. Go ahead. I already talked to one. Their faces fell. Rebecca let out a frustrated scream and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. My parents stood there for a moment, still looking at me like they had never seen me before. Then, without another word, they left too. But something told me this was far from over. After my parents and Rebecca stormed out, I knew things weren't over. People like them don't just accept consequences. For the next few days, it was radio silence. No angry calls. No texts. Not even a guilt trip message from my mom. It was eerie. Then, exactly 1 week later, I came home to find a stranger waiting for me. A man in a suit, holding a folder. Mr. Carter, he asked, reading my name off a clipboard. I nodded. You've been served. I blinked. Excuse me. He handed me the envelope and walked off without another word. I ripped it open and felt my stomach drop. They were suing me. The lawsuit claimed that I had fraudulently purchased the apartment my parents lived in. They accused me of elder abuse, stating that I had used manipulative tactics to take advantage of them financially. It was bullshit. But the real kicker. They had Rebecca listed as a witness. She was willing to lie under oath just to take me down. I called my lawyer immediately. He skimmed the lawsuit and let out a low whistle. They're grasping at straws, he said. This won't hold up in court. But they're hoping you'll back down before it even gets there. I gritted my teeth. They wanted to scare me. They wanted me to give in. They wanted me to crawl back, apologize, and give Rebecca my house. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to expose them. I gathered every text, email, and bank statement I had over the years. Every little thing that proved I had supported them financially while Rebecca did nothing. Then I did something ruthless. I sent it all to our extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. I attached a short message, in case you're wondering why my parents are suing me, here's the truth. I bought them a home. Paid for everything. But they want more. They want my house, too. And Rebecca is willing to lie under oath to get it. Thought you all should know. Then, I waited. It didn't take long. My phone exploded. Cousins were furious. Aunts were disgusted. Even family members who usually stayed out of drama were blowing up my parents' phones, demanding an explanation. It was glorious. Then, my parents did something incredibly stupid. They called a family meeting. We met at my Uncle James' house. He was one of the few family members who had always seen through Rebecca's act. The living room was packed. My parents sat stiffly on the couch. Rebecca perched next to them, arms crossed, looking smug. The second I walked in, my mom pointed at me. "You had no right to send that message." "I had every right," I said calmly. "You're making us look like monsters," Dad snapped. I laughed. "You did that to yourselves." The room went silent. Then Rebecca scoffed. "Oh, get over yourself. You think this little stunt makes you look good? You're just showing everyone how petty you are." I tilted my head. "Really? Then why are half the people in this room looking at you like you just crawled out of a sewer?" I gestured toward my Aunt Marie, who was shaking her head. "This is disgusting," she muttered. Then my cousin, Daniel, chimed in. "You're literally suing the person who pays your bills. How do you even sleep at night?" My mom flushed red. "It's not like that." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "None of you understand. He's always been bitter because I'm the favorite. That did it." I took a slow breath. "You're not the favorite," I said. "You're the burden." Rebecca's smirk vanished. I turned to my parents. "You don't love her. You just enabled her because it was easier than making her take responsibility. You let her leech off you, and when you ran out of things to give, you turned to me." Nobody spoke. I kept going. "But I'm done. I'm done taking care of you. I'm done letting you use me." Rebecca opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You think you're winning? Go ahead. Take me to court. You'll lose. You'll lose badly. And when you do, I'll sell your apartment. To someone else." My mom gasped. "You wouldn't." I stared her down. "Try me." The lawsuit was dropped within days. My parents tried begging for forgiveness. I ignored them. Rebecca? She spiraled. She tried turning the rest of the family against me, but nobody bought it. She burned every bridge she had left. The last I heard, she was couch hopping from friend to friend, still refusing to get a job. And my parents? I sold their apartment. I gave them 60 days to leave. When the deadline hit, I didn't hesitate. I watched them pack up and leave. They didn't even say goodbye. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. There were nights when I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I had done the right thing. But then I'd remember all the years I spent begging for their approval. I'd remember all the times I needed help and they told me to figure it out. And I'd remember the way they expected me to give up everything for Rebecca, like I was nothing more than a bank account with legs. So, no. I don't regret it. Not one bit. Some people say blood is thicker than water. But I say respect is thicker than blood. And if someone, family or not, treats you like you owe them your life, then you don't owe them anything. Not your time. Not your energy. And certainly not your home.